Confidence is one of those qualities that people immediately notice, even before a word is spoken. It's in the way you stand, the way you carry yourself, the way you look someone in the eye without flinching. But confidence is not arrogance. It's not puffing up your chest and demanding attention. That's insecurity masquerading as strength, and everyone can see through it. Real confidence is quieter, more stable, more grounded. It doesn't need validation because it comes from a place of competence and deep self-respect. When a man has worked hard to develop himself, to refine his character, to master a skill, he doesn't need to shout about it. His very presence speaks for him, and women, more than anyone else, can sense the difference. Think about the man who walks into a room without trying to be the loudest voice. He doesn't need to announce himself, yet people turn their heads. Why? Because he exudes a kind of calm certainty. He's not looking for approval. He's not trying to convince anyone that he's worth something. He already knows it, and that quiet inner assurance is far more compelling than any flashy display. Women are drawn to this because it signals security. It says, here is a man who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't need external applause to feel alive, who knows who he is and stands firmly in it. Arrogance, on the other hand, is brittle. It's fragile. It's a mask that hides deep uncertainty. The arrogant man is constantly chasing recognition. He needs people to see him, to admire him, to affirm him, because without it, he falls apart. That's why arrogance feels repulsive after a while. It exhausts people. It signals weakness disguised as strength. A confident man doesn't need to prove himself endlessly. He simply shows up as he is, and that's more than enough. Confidence is built through discipline. It comes from doing the hard things, from keeping promises to yourself, from learning and failing and improving. When you've been tested by life, when you've endured difficulty and come out stronger, you develop a certainty that no one can take away from you. That certainty radiates outward, and women recognize it instantly. They aren't attracted to arrogance because arrogance is hollow. They are drawn to true confidence because it feels reliable, trustworthy, unshakable. But there's another element to this. Confidence is not just about how you see yourself. It's also about how you make others feel. The truly confident man doesn't need to push people down to lift himself up. He doesn't belittle or dominate. Instead, he brings a sense of stability and encouragement. He makes others feel safe, respected, and valued. That combination, strength without hostility, assurance without aggression, is what makes confidence so magnetic. When you embody confidence without arrogance, you create an atmosphere around you. People feel it when you enter the room. They feel calmer, more secure, more drawn to your presence. Women especially feel this because it speaks to something very deep in their nature. The desire to be with someone who is strong enough to face the world, yet humble enough to remain grounded. So the goal is not to become louder, flashier, or more dominant. The goal is to cultivate real strength within yourself, to build competence in your work, to discipline your habits, to align your actions with your values. When you do that, confidence emerges naturally, and it doesn't need to be broadcasted. It becomes self-evident. And that is infinitely more attractive than arrogance will ever be. Remember this. Arrogance crumbles under scrutiny, but true confidence only grows stronger the more it's tested. That's why the man who chooses confidence without arrogance will always stand out, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. There is something profoundly attractive about a man who knows where he's going, not because he has all the answers, not because the path is perfectly clear, but because he has chosen a direction and is willing to move toward it with conviction. That sense of purpose acts like a magnet. It pulls people in, it inspires trust, it creates momentum that others want to be a part of. And women, especially, are drawn to it. not because they're looking for someone to complete their lives, but because purpose is evidence of strength, of clarity, of determination. It shows that you are not drifting aimlessly, waiting for life to tell you who you are, but that you are actively shaping your existence with intent. A man without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. He drifts wherever the wind blows, tossed around by circumstance, unsure of his place, uncertain of his direction. That lack of grounding doesn't just affect him, it affects everyone around him. People feel uneasy in the presence of someone who doesn't know where they're going. It creates instability, and instability breeds doubt. But when a man sets his eyes on a goal, when he says, "This is where I'm heading," even if the road is long and difficult, suddenly everything around him begins to align. People rally behind him. They respect him. They want to be near him because his movement creates meaning. Purpose doesn't mean you need to conquer the world or achieve some monumental vision. It can be as simple as building a family, creating meaningful work, or striving to become a better man each day. What matters is that it's real, that it comes from deep within, that it pushes you to grow beyond comfort. And when that purpose is authentic, it changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you engage with others. It adds weight to your presence. For women, this is compelling because it signals stability and future. A man with purpose is not stagnant, not stuck in mediocrity. He is moving, he is alive, he is striving. That striving ignites respect and admiration. It communicates, here is someone who can shoulder responsibility, who has direction, who can build something worth believing in. And that is magnetic because it touches a fundamental truth. Attraction is not just about appearance or charm, it's about energy. The energy of a purposeful man is unmistakable. And here's the interesting thing. Purpose also protects you from the traps of arrogance and insecurity. When your eyes are fixed on a worthy aim, you don't waste time comparing yourself to others, showing off, or chasing validation. Your energy is too valuable to squander on meaningless distractions. You become steady, disciplined, grounded in something greater than yourself. That steadiness is what women sense. They see it in your posture, they hear it in your tone, they recognize it in your decisions. Now, purpose is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is discovered in struggle, in responsibility, in pushing against resistance. You find it by paying attention to what truly matters, by taking ownership of your life, by asking, what is worth suffering for? And once you answer that, you begin to walk a path that has weight and meaning. That path may be difficult, but it will also be deeply fulfilling because it aligns your life with something real, something bigger than you. When you live with purpose, you don't just exist, you lead, you inspire. You create a gravitational pull that others cannot ignore. Women are drawn to that not because they want to follow blindly, but because they see the strength, the conviction, the stability that comes with it. And in a world full of distraction and drift, that stands out like fire in the dark. So remember this. A man without direction will always struggle to hold attention, but a man with purpose doesn't need to chase anyone. His life itself does the chasing. His purpose carries him forward, and everything he needs follows in its wake. One of the most underrated yet powerful qualities a man can embody is emotional stability. It's not the flashiest trait. It's not the kind of thing people boast about, but it is one of the deepest, most irresistible forms of strength. To remain steady when the world is chaotic, to hold yourself together when everything around you threatens to fall apart. That creates a sense of safety that women are profoundly drawn to. Because here's the truth, life is unpredictable, it will test you, it will throw storms your way. And if you cannot regulate yourself, if you collapse under pressure, you not only make your own life harder, but you make the lives of those around you unstable. But when you hold the line, when you can breathe, remain calm, and act with clarity, you become a pillar. Now think about it. Who do people turn to when there's a crisis? They don't run to the man who panics, who loses his temper, who falls into despair at the first sign of trouble. They turn to the man who remains composed, the one whose voice is steady, whose eyes don't waver, whose decisions come from a place of reason rather than fear. That man becomes the anchor. He is not perfect, but he is reliable, and reliability is far more valuable than perfection. Women sense this deeply. They are not looking for someone who will never stumble, but for someone who can stand tall even when stumbling. Emotional stability is not about suppressing feelings. It's not about pretending that pain or fear or anger don't exist. That would be dishonesty, and dishonesty always cracks under pressure. True stability is about feeling the emotion fully, acknowledging it, and still choosing to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. That discipline is rare, and that rarity is part of what makes it so attractive. Because when a woman sees that you can face hardship without collapsing, that you can navigate conflict without cruelty, that you can endure difficulty without falling into despair, she feels safe. And safety is not a small thing. It is one of the most powerful forces of attraction that exists. The man who cannot control his emotions is dangerous, not in a strong way, but in a destructive way. He lashes out, he blames, he spirals, and in doing so, he corrodes trust. But the man who can master himself, who can take responsibility for his reactions, who can stay calm in the storm, that man builds trust effortlessly. His presence lowers the anxiety of those around him. His steadiness says, no matter what happens, I can handle it. That message resonates more deeply than words ever could. And here's the paradox. Emotional stability doesn't just benefit those around you, it frees you too. When you learn to regulate yourself, to anchor your emotions, you stop being a prisoner to circumstances. You no longer let every criticism, every obstacle, every disappointment throw you off balance. You carry yourself with a quiet strength, and people feel it immediately. They know they can lean on you because you are not swayed by every passing storm. This is why women are drawn to emotional stability more than to raw aggression or bravado. Because while the aggressive man might appear powerful in the moment, his instability reveals itself sooner or later. But the man who remains steady, whose strength is tempered by composure, whose emotions are mastered rather than suppressed, that man inspires trust, loyalty, and respect. So remember this. Your ability to master your emotions is not a weakness. It is your greatest power. The storms will come, but if you can remain the calm within them, you will not only elevate your own life, you will become the kind of man whose presence makes others feel safe enough to breathe. And that is the kind of strength no one can resist. There is something fascinating about mystery. It draws people in, it sparks curiosity. It leaves them wanting more. And when it comes to attraction, mystery plays an essential role. See, one of the greatest mistakes men make is thinking they should lay everything out on the table right away, every thought, every feeling, every detail about who they are. But when you do that, you remove the intrigue, you strip away the discovery, and discovery is what makes relationships exciting. It's the unfolding, the gradual revelation of who you are that keeps interest alive. Mystery doesn't mean you're secretive or dishonest. It's not about hiding parts of yourself out of fear. It's about understanding that you don't need to reveal every detail of your life immediately. It's about letting your depth be revealed over time, piece by piece, like chapters in a story. Because the truth is, people value what they earn through patience and attention. When someone has to lean in to understand you, when they sense that there's more to you than what's visible on the surface, they invest. That curiosity makes them stay. Think about it. The most compelling characters in stories, in films, even in history, are the ones who carry an air of mystery. They don't explain themselves fully, and yet everything they do is intentional. They hold something back, not because they're manipulative, but because they're layered, complex, alive in ways that can't be grasped all at once. That's what keeps people fascinated. And as a man, you should strive to cultivate this not as a trick, but as a natural outcome of living a meaningful life that cannot be reduced to surface appearances. Women are especially drawn to this because mystery creates a sense of pursuit. It's not about playing games, it's about keeping the relationship dynamic alive. If you give everything too soon, there's no chase, no curiosity, no anticipation. But when you live with depth, when you have interests, goals, and thoughts that unfold gradually, you create an endless source of intrigue. It's not about withholding. It's about living fully enough that there's always something new to discover. Mystery is also tied to self-respect. A man who reveals everything too quickly often does so out of insecurity. He wants to be understood immediately. He wants approval. He wants connection without effort. But the man who is comfortable in his own skin, who doesn't rush to be seen, communicates something far stronger, that his value is not dependent on instant recognition. He knows that the right people will take the time to uncover who he is. That kind of patience and restraint is attractive because it signals confidence. And here's the beautiful thing. Mystery doesn't fade if you keep growing. If you continue to challenge yourself to learn, to explore new ideas and experiences, then there will always be new sides of you to reveal. That unfolding keeps relationships alive. It keeps conversations interesting. It keeps attraction vibrant. Because no matter how well someone thinks they know you, there's always another layer, another depth, another perspective that emerges. So don't rush to be fully known. Don't throw your entire self onto the table as if you must be understood immediately to be worthy of attention. Let people discover you gradually. Let them lean in, ask questions, and be curious. Live a life so rich, so meaningful, so layered, that even those closest to you are still fascinated years later. Because mystery isn't about what you hide. It's about what you continually reveal. And when you live that way, you don't just capture attention for a moment, you hold it for a lifetime. When a man sets high standards for himself, he sends a message without ever needing to say a word. I value who I am, and I will not compromise that value. This isn't about arrogance, and it isn't about being demanding for the sake of control. It's about knowing what you're worth and refusing to settle for anything that undermines that worth. And women notice it immediately, because standards reveal something fundamental about your character. They show whether you live out of self-respect or desperation. A man with no standards is easy to spot. He accepts poor treatment, tolerates disrespect, and bends himself into shapes just to keep someone around. At first, it may look like kindness, but in reality it's weakness. And weakness, when revealed over time, erodes attraction. Why? Because it shows that he doesn't believe he deserves more. A man who doesn't respect himself enough to set boundaries cannot expect others to respect him either. But a man with high standards communicates something else entirely. When he chooses carefully who he allows into his life, when he doesn't chase after every passing opportunity, when he makes it clear that he values loyalty, integrity, and effort, he shows that he is not desperate. He shows that he has options, that his time and energy are precious, and that not everyone is entitled to them. That creates value because people always respect what is rare, what is selective, what is not easily obtained. Women are especially drawn to this trait, not because they want to be rejected, but because they want to know that your approval means something. If you accept everyone and everything without discernment, then your attention is cheap. But when you hold high standards, when you don't compromise on what matters, then your attention becomes meaningful. It's no longer something anyone can take for granted. It becomes something worth earning, and there's another side to this. High standards aren't just about what you expect from others. They're also about what you demand of yourself. The man who holds himself accountable, who strives for excellence, who refuses to live below his potential, that man naturally commands respect. Because standards begin within, you cannot expect loyalty, honesty, and growth from others if you don't first embody those traits yourself. When you live with discipline, when you take care of your body, when you pursue meaningful goals, when you refuse to indulge in mediocrity, you become a man of value. And value always attracts. Now, of course, there will be resistance. The moment you start setting boundaries, people will test them. Some will call you harsh. Some will accuse you of being too rigid. But remember this. Every boundary you draw is a declaration of self-respect. It's not about shutting people out. It's about protecting what you've built. And the right people, the ones who see your worth, will not only respect your standards, they'll admire you for them. This is why men with high standards don't need to beg for attention. They don't need to prove themselves endlessly. Their very presence communicates strength and value. And women, whether they admit it openly or not, are deeply attracted to men who stand firm in what they believe, who don't compromise their integrity, who aren't willing to dilute themselves just to be liked. So understand this clearly. The standards you hold are the price you set for your presence in the world. Set them too low, and you'll attract chaos, disrespect, and disappointment. Set them high, and you'll filter out the noise and draw in what is worthy of you. And in the end, that's not just attractive, it's essential if you want to build a life and a relationship that truly lasts. Strength on its own can be intimidating. Kindness on its own can be taken advantage of. But when a man combines the two, when he has the ability to be strong, decisive, and firm, while at the same time showing compassion, empathy, and respect, he becomes truly magnetic. This balance is rare, and because it's rare, it's unforgettable. Women are not drawn to brute force alone, nor are they captivated by softness without backbone. What they're really searching for, often without even being fully conscious of it, is a man who can wield his strength responsibly, a man who has the capacity for power but chooses to direct it toward protection, love, and care. Consider what it means to be strong. It doesn't just mean physical capability. It means the ability to endure hardship, to stand up for what is right, to shoulder responsibility when others collapse under the weight of it. Strength is courage, resilience, and determination. But strength without kindness becomes tyranny. It becomes dominance for the sake of control, and over time, it corrodes relationships. People may fear it, but they won't love it. Respect born out of fear is fragile and short-lived. Now think about kindness. Real kindness is not weakness. It is the deliberate choice to act with generosity and fairness even when you don't have to. It's listening when it would be easier to ignore, forgiving when it would be easier to resent, supporting when it would be easier to turn away. But kindness without strength becomes fragility. It becomes endless compromise, a constant bending to the will of others, and eventually it breeds resentment. People might appreciate it at first, but they will lose respect for it when they realize it has no boundaries. The man who embodies both strength and kindness holds immense power. He is capable of standing his ground, saying no, drawing lines, making hard decisions. Yet he does so without cruelty. His kindness gives his strength direction. His strength gives his kindness weight. Together, they create a kind of presence that is deeply attractive, because it communicates both safety and respect. Women feel safe because they know he can protect and provide stability. They feel valued because they know he will treat them with care and consideration. This balance isn't easy to achieve. It requires self-awareness, discipline, and integrity. It requires knowing when to be firm and when to be gentle. It requires the humility to care about others, while having the backbone to never lose yourself in the process. But once you develop this duality, you set yourself apart. You show that you are not one-dimensional, not bound by extremes, but capable of carrying the weight of the world while still keeping your heart open. And here's the truth. This balance is what makes a man trustworthy. Anyone can appear strong when things are easy, but real strength is revealed in how you use your power when the opportunity arises to dominate or to care. Anyone can appear kind when they're weak, but real kindness is revealed when you have the strength to choose otherwise and still treat people with dignity. That is what earns lasting respect, lasting admiration, and lasting attraction. So do not settle for being only strong or only kind. Cultivate both. Build the strength that allows you to stand firm in the face of adversity, and pair it with the kindness that allows you to connect deeply with others. Because the man who can wield his power with compassion is not only respected, he is loved. And in the end, that combination makes him impossible to ignore. At the end of it all, what becomes clear is that attraction isn't built on tricks or lines or games. It isn't about trying to be someone you're not. It's about embodying qualities that speak to something far deeper: confidence that doesn't need to shout, purpose that pulls others in, emotional stability that provides safety, mystery that keeps curiosity alive, standards that reveal self-respect, and strength guided by kindness. These are not surface-level tactics. They are foundations for the kind of man worth remembering, worth respecting, and worth admiring. And when you live this way, you stop chasing and start attracting. You no longer seek validation because you've built a life that validates itself. You become the man who others want to be near, not because you demanded it, but because your very presence makes them feel something rare. So commit yourself to these principles, live them out, refine them, and let them shape every decision you make. Because when you do, you won't just find that women are drawn to you. You'll find that life itself begins to open its doors in ways you never thought possible.